Hey guys, and welcome in to the Horseshoe Huddle on Sports Illustrated podcast. I'm Josh Carney, deputy editor, back again with our senior analyst Jake Arthur. Jake, how you doing?
I'm awesome. How you doing, brother?
Good. Yesterday, so Sunday was a big catch up on rest day for me. I don't know about you, but that
Yeah,
marathon Saturday
absolutely.
seemed to take a lot out of me.
Yeah, it was weird to not have gone to bed at like 1 or 2 because Thursday night I went to bed at 1, and the next night I went to bed at 2, and then I actually got a full night's sleep the next night. So
Yeah, it was strange. All
yeah,
day Sunday, I was like, I feel like I should be doing something, but always good to take that day off. But yeah, 3-day 2021 NFL draft is in the books. The Colts have some new pieces. We will run down that here in a bit. We will avoid the Quiddy Pay talk since we already went over that. But on day 2, the Colts had one pick, 54 overall. Jake and I did talk on the last pod. We thought they may move down and gather a third rounder. That did not happen, and the Colts went in a direction that I don't think Jake and I really saw coming in terms of the player, but we did mention we could see them double up on an edge defender, and that's what they did, grabbing Vanderbilt's Dio Odengbo. Very surprising for me, Jake. I don't know how you felt about the selection, but I thought that could be tackle or corner, and when I saw
mhm.
edge come up on the board, I was a little surprised.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Ballard said that they had Dio ranked above pretty much everybody else at that point. Because of course they got asked about why not a tackle the whole time. Every time Chris had to talk, he was asked about tackle. And he did mention that there was a couple guys picked right before them in the second round, and that would have been Sam Cosmi and Dylan Radunes. They've been looking at prototypical left tackle guys that can stick at left tackle their whole career. They don't want to have to draft them and then move them at some point. Um, so yeah, it looks like a couple guys they liked were off the board, but they still had Dio ranked higher. Um, yes, it was a position in need, and they always want to get better at edge. But again, it just comes down to the best player available. And if you look at it next year, Taekwon Lewis, Kamoko Toure, Ben Banogu, you don't know the future of those guys, Al-Qadim Muhammad. So having this guy healthy coming into 2022, that should be a huge asset.
Yeah, and right when the pick happened, I kind of fired out there on Twitter like that feels like Ben Banogu's replacement. Um, Watching Dio a little further, he does feel like a Danico Autry, Taekwon Lewis type of player that could potentially put on 10 to 15 pounds and really slide inside on obvious pass rushing downs. But I just I would have liked to have seen a tackle there, honestly, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that guys came off the board. I think Radunes came off at 53 for the Titans, so right before the Colts
Yeah.
pick. Um, but I mean, you watch Dio's tape, and he's pretty darn good inside. He's long, physical. He has some pass rush to him, but he's probably not going to play much in 2021. If I were to surmise, Jake, how do you feel about that as a redshirt year for Dio?
Yeah, so you have to look at his injury specifically, and you hope for the best. But in reality, this is an Achilles injury. In the
Right.
past, that has not been a good injury. So it's nothing. It's nothing that you can say like, yeah, he'll be healthy. Blank. You just don't know. He may never be the same player again. So that creates a lot of pause, unfortunately. Uh, but if we're looking on the rosier side of it and saying that he won't contribute much this year, but next year hopefully, yeah, that makes sense. I think I saw Ian Rappaport said like August maybe his time frame. The Colts weren't giving any time frame, and neither was he, honestly.
Right.
Um, but
August
if
would be
it's
a quick turnaround.
it really would be, because I mean we've seen some guys do it as quick as what 6, 7, 8 months. I mean those are rare instances, but uh, I would more count on it being a later in the season, if anything. Like I don't know if they can use Pup for something that's like a non-football injury list type of thing, because that he'd
Right.
probably qualify for that. But yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, obviously the schedule comes out May 12th, but I think right now I would be comfortable saying that could be a post-bye week roster move where he's healthy, ready to go. Very curious to see the fit, though, and how they use him. I was reading some post-draft grades this morning. Have a couple pieces up on Horseshoe Huddle. A lot of people not in favor of the Colts draft, but it's important to remember that Chris Ballard drafts for years down the road, not for the next season. So if you get a guy like Dio who can rehab, come back, and kind of fill in that Danico Autry role, I mean, getting that type of guy at 54, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, the upside of that is really good. A couple of the better defensive linemen, at least for stretches that they've had under Ballard, Marcus Hunt and Danico Autry have just had tremendous reach. And
Right.
I think he's got like an 85-inch wingspan or something. Like he's got something otherworldly there. So whether he can play inside or out, different scenarios, I see that being, if he gets back and is healthy, I see that being a real big asset for them. And it fits in really well. I think we might be frozen here. You still there? Yeah, we'll be right back with you guys. One moment. Hey guys, thanks for coming back with us. So we were just talking about Dio Dangbo and kind of specifically his reach and his length. He's got, I think he's like 6'5" and about 85-inch wingspan, which is just insane for a defensive lineman. So that fits in really well. I think you probably just heard me mention guys like Marcus Hunt and Danico Autry that the Colts have had around. As for a grade on that pick, I don't normally like to grade stuff because it just seems so premature. But we'll give that one a C. I mean, taking someone with an Achilles injury that early is pretty risky. I do definitely respect that they really like him as a player, and there's a lot of high upside there. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I'd give that a C. I'm optimistic, but I'm not going to totally trash that pick because I could see it working out if he comes back healthy. And then we're moving on to they didn't have a third round pick, of course. They lost that in the Carson Wentz trade, but they went ahead and they were able to grab Alan Granson. Hey, welcome back, Josh. What's up, brother?
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Still trying to work the kinks out here, but yeah, I think you summed up Odengbo pretty well. Certainly going to sit out for much of the year, I would guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned a guy that we both texted each other at the same time.
Yeah.
Kylan Granson, excuse me, number 127 overall in the fourth round. He fits the Colts system to a T.
He
I
really
mean,
does.
I'm pretty pumped about that selection. So tell me a little bit more about Granson from your perspective, Jake.
Yeah, so I see that one just really high upside there. Tight ends do take a little while to acclimate, and he was actually asked about that in his press conference right after he got picked, And he said he thinks a lot of it is just that tight ends have so much to learn and so much to do, that really after quarterback, tight ends have to know, the next most information. And it makes a lot of sense because there's truth to that. They participate a lot in the run and pass game, both as blockers and receivers, obviously, in the pass game. So there's just so much to have to absorb there. Now, he is a real smart dude. Rice and SMU are two really good schools. He transferred from Rice, and then once the coach was fired, he was able to transfer over to SMU. But so I don't know how quickly he'll be able to contribute, just because, again, I kind of have a general rule of thumb for tight ends that year one is just almost all learning. Like if they get like 10, 15 catches out of a tight end, then that's a good thing as a rookie.
Yeah.
But yeah, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a guy that I kind of jumped on early in the process as that ideal move tight end for anyone in the league. I know that coming out of SMU and having background at Rice, he was used more as that move tight end in spread systems. He's not going to offer you a ton in line, but that's okay with the current crop of tight ends that the Colts have. Just this morning, Mo Alley-Cox signed his second round tender. He'll come back at 1-year deal, about $3.384 million. Pretty similar to the Zach Pascal contract, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were both given the second round tender.
Okay, yeah. So you have Mo Alley-Cox as tight end 2 behind Jack Doyle, and you can bring along Granson slowly as the number 3. Our buddy Zach Hicks put up, as soon as the pick was selected, kind of side-by-side testing numbers between Granson and Trey Burton, and it's pretty darn close, Jake. Makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that's going to create a lot of separation in routes, and the thing I really like about him is his ability after the catch. He's going to run away from some guys in this league, and that's going to be really nice to have on those crossing routes, and those the drags, the slants, all that's going to happen in Frank Reich's system. So to have a tight end like that, get him in the 4th round at 127, clearly their guy. Very happy with the selection.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are parallels to Trey Burton for sure. Trey's Florida tape was a little different than what turned out to be his NFL tape, whether it's just injuries or what have you. But no, this kid, Kylan Granson, moves really well. Like you said, after the catch, creates separation. I think he'll be able to do some nice things downfield as well. Yeah. So that was a really solid pickup. And getting him in the 4th round, a lot of tight ends that have been successful aren't always picked up early. So getting him in the 4th round and trying to project whether he'll be a heavy contributor at some point, that 4th round status doesn't really bother me, because that just seems to be par for the course for tight ends.
Yeah, I was having some fun doing those, evaluating the value pieces after picks, and we had up on the screen there earlier, Granson was not highly rated by a number of people that I looked at. Not in the top 300 for Dane Brugler. I think he was number 285 for Draft Network, 303 for Draft Network, and then Pro Football Focus, kind of in the same neighborhood I was in, 196 overall, tight end number 8. If you look at it that way, the Colts reached. I mean, there's no way to get around that. But when you look at the fit and the abilities that Granson brings to the table, I think this was the ideal. He's going to line up all over the system. But, I don't think it was a reach, in my personal opinion, based off of my board. I mean, I really liked him early in the draft process, and he just fits everything the Colts look for. But, Jake, anything else on Granson before we move on to the next pick?
Nah, he was just one of multiple Senior Bowl guys that the Colts picked up, which is not uncommon at all. I thought especially this year they would grab maybe more Senior Bowl guys than usual, because there wasn't the combine and there wasn't, this and that. It was not a normal pre-draft process. So being able to get their hands on these guys at the Senior Bowl, I thought was really going to be something they leaned on, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and then after Granson, kind of went in the direction, Jake, we thought they would, addressing safety depth, grabbing Florida's Sean Davis at 165 overall. Tell me what you know about Sean Davis, what you think of the selection, Jake.
Just he's a kind of kind of a thicker package, kind of the smaller, stout type of guy, muscular, as you can see. Packs a punch when he hits. He's got a little bit of a range and coverage, so he can do some free safety duties, but he can, again, I mentioned he can hit, likes to tackle, drop into the box a little bit. One big thing is he is experienced in special teams, which should be pretty key for them.
Yes.
Because if he's not the third safety that we thought they might try to address and add into sub packages, he can at least be a special team standout. Now, where they drafted him, I would think they have a plan for him on defense. Because by the 5th round, I think you probably still want to try and get position players. So that might be what they're doing there.
Yeah. I feel bad for us and the rest of Colts media in 2021 and maybe beyond. 2 Sean Davises at safety.
Yeah.
At
least I think they're spelled different. So
they are spelled differently. But that was certainly interesting. Again, here looking at pre-draft board, big board rankings for Sean Davis. If you tend to lean more towards the Draft Network, this was a significant reach. If you come in a little closer to Pro Football Focus and Dane Brugler's boards, this was right around where Davis was probably projected to go. I've seen anywhere from 4th round to undrafted free agent, unfortunately. But you mentioned great ball skills. He can play that center field role. He can play in the box. I didn't see him lined up as that slot hybrid guy much at Florida, so I don't think that's going to be in the equation for him.
Right.
But physical guy when he gets to the football, does have some inconsistencies when it comes to tackling, but you bring that type of special teams value and experience from the college level to the NFL, you're going to stick on a roster and you're going to endear yourself to coaches. So not the name that I was kind of looking at, but it makes a ton of sense the more you get into his tape and see what he brings to the table. So, I mean, I'm pretty pleased with that selection. You get a guy from a Power 5 program. I believe he was at the Senior Bowl as well, if I'm not mistaken. Jake, do you remember that off the top of your head?
I think so. I think he was another Senior Bowl player, to be honest. Yeah.
So, I mean, it fits. And, if anyone's questioning the pick, just go and look at some of the interceptions Davis had in his career.
Yeah.
Really, really good ball skills. And profiles is that number 3, number 4 safety moving forward behind Blackman and Willis. So, any other further thoughts on Davis before we get to my favorite pick?
No, I mean, the pick's all right. I think it was potentially their least sexy pick.
Right.
Just because I don't know how much he'll be able to contribute yet. We'll see. But it was all right. I understand why they made it.
Yeah. Up next, though, position that I kind of identified as a possible
take your
selection.
Victory lap.
Yeah, I'm going to take my victory lap here because I caught a lot of grief from Colts fans leading up to the draft. I mentioned a day 3 quarterback. They needed to do it. Not a name that I identified, but, the further you look at it, I think Sam Ehlinger, 3-year captain at Texas, over 40 career starts, dual threat, just a hearts and smarts guy that fits what Ballard looks for. And when his name flashed across the bottom of the screen on Saturday, Jake, I texted you immediately. I was like, they got the quarterback. Do I think he pushes Jacob Eason this year? No. Eason was a much better prospect than Sam Ehlinger coming out. But it was just hard to look at that roster pre-draft and go, Wentz and Eason, that's solid. You don't really need a QB3. That's
right.
I'm thrilled to see a guy like Sam Ehlinger come in with the toughness and the I want to bounce this one off you, Jake. Do you think that they could put in a short yardage package for Ehlinger like they had for Brissett last season?
I don't know that they'll do that. Because number one, I don't know that they'll carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster, so he may be on the practice squad. But I think maybe you and I have talked about this, or maybe it was Zach and I, but they don't really need a package like they had for Brissett anymore because Carson Wentz does have that toughness and mobility.
Right.
Last year, they just had 0 option with it with Phillip Rivers, so they found a use for Jacoby Brissett on the field. But I don't think that'll be necessary this time around. I do. So in regards to this pick, we've talked about it makes the most sense that they would get like a veteran free agent to back up Wentz.
Right.
So maybe they don't still do that now that they have Ellinger as well. But I like that he's a very experienced college player. He's not raw. Now, Eason was a better prospect, but I think Ellinger is less of a project probably.
Yeah.
And with his mobility, I think he'd be able to see the field more. Like in an emergency, if the Colts had to start Ellinger, I think they could figure something out.
Right.
I think they would put him on the move a lot. I think they do a lot of short, quick stuff. I just think that I think it's gonna be a really interesting camp battle because I think they'd be able to get Ellinger on the field quicker. But I think Eason's probably got a lot more upside.
Yeah, that's right where I'm at. We're in lockstep there. That's what I was thinking about this morning before coming on the pod here was, yes, you'd still like to see them get a veteran to be the number 2, at least early in the year behind Wentz. But I don't know that that's necessary anymore because Ellinger, granted it's college compared to the NFL, but Ellinger was a 4-year starter in the Big 12, a 3-year captain. He has all the experience in the world, whereas I can't remember off the top of my head the amount of starts that Eason had at Washington, but I think he came into the NFL with maybe 17 career starts, I want to say.
It was something in that ballpark of like 20-ish or something because he started for Georgia and then lost the job when he got hurt, transferred and sat out the year, and then went to Washington. And then he started the full season in Washington. So he started like a partial season at Georgia, skipped a year, started the full season at Washington. So he didn't have a lot of starts under his belt.
Yeah, and so I think that what you said about Ellinger being less of a project, I think he's further along at the QB position than Eason is at the moment. That does not mean that Ellinger is a better quarterback.
Right.
I think Eason has all the tools in the world, projects as a really solid number 2 in the NFL. But if worst case scenario, something were to happen to Carson Wentz early in the year and they don't have that veteran backup, I honestly think right now, as we sit here today, Ellinger may be the guy that they turn to because there's just so much projecting when it comes with, to Eason and his role. Where are you at in that subject?
Yeah. So like I said, I think they could get Ellinger ready quicker. I think they'd have a more comfortable time coming up with a game plan for that. Because Eason's not a statue, but he's not like mobility isn't like a key part of his game. Ellinger, you could probably run him 20 times in that game.
Yeah.
It might not look pretty, but you could probably run him 20 times in that game and work up just a lot of short rhythmic stuff for him. Just make it easy for him. Yeah. Eason, if they just went and blitzed him all game, the Colts offense would be non-existent in that game. That's just how I'm seeing it. There was a game 2 years ago. I think it was after Jacoby Brissett got hurt. Marlon Mack was hurt too. It was in Houston. And Jonathan Williams was the running back. They ran the ball like 40 times.
Yeah.
Brissett had a huge game against Houston previously in the year, so I thought, okay, they'll still throw the ball. They didn't. He was so bad throwing the ball in that game, and that is what it would remind me of if they just threw Eason in on a whim if Wentz got hurt. That's just that's the kind of outcome I see until he's ready, which I don't think would be yet.
Yeah.
Ellinger, I see it being ugly, but I see them getting through it. I think they'd run him a lot.
Yeah, I got a couple DMs on Twitter right after the selection saying this is Tim Tebow all over again. I don't necessarily think those are fair comparisons. I think Ellinger is much more advanced as a passer than Tebow was, but you bring up a good point. If Ellinger had to see that Denver Broncos style offense, where it's a lot of read option, QB power, screens, and just quick throws to get the ball out of his hands. But I know Ellinger's kind of been tagged with that Tebow comparison since probably his junior year. But I like the selection. The more I watch of him, I know that there were concerns about his ability in the pocket, but he can move in the pocket. He feels the rush well. He can get rid of the football. I think his issues are the deep shots and the inaccuracy and the lack of arm strength with Ellinger.
Yeah, I think there was a lot wrong with how Tebow threw the ball, and there's not that. accuracy is an issue with Ellinger. They'll probably do what they have been trying to do with Easton and kind of rebuild him from the ground up as far as his accuracy goes. So they'll probably get to improve the accuracy a little bit. But yeah, it's Tebow just like couldn't hit the broadside of a barn sometimes, and his timing was off. And I don't see all that many issues in Ellinger's game. No. I mean, it's not great, but it's not that bad.
Right. He can be a solid QB3 at the very least. So, yeah, I'll take my victory lap, at least for the next week when it comes to calling my shot on a day 3 quarterback.
But, you won at that time.
Yeah, but after Ellinger, Jake, I saw you put up an interesting tweet. It was like, I couldn't even find a photo of this guy. Mike Strachan, Charleston, University of Charleston in West Virginia, 6'5", 226, tested off the charts.
Yeah.
I don't know much about this guy. I'm struggling to find some tape on him. But you look at the height, weight, speed. I mean, that feels like a classic Ballard pick, does it not?
Yeah, they always have to take at least one guy every year from a small school, and it's one guy like a lot of the draft nicks have heard of him, but like is not a common name by any means. I like this pick. There's a lot of high upside on him. I just did his kind of summation from his presser. I did that today. There's a lot to like there. A lot of these bigger guys can't move that well. They're just big targets, but he is fast, and he ran a sub 7-second 3-cone.
Yeah.
So that's really appealing as well. I know someone said he can't dip his hips all that well, but that 3-cone time speaks for itself.
Yes, it does.
I don't know how quickly he'll be able to contribute just because of that level of competition, but he's obviously got the physical tools. I also like that Michael Irvin has been a family friend. Him and his dad and Michael Irvin were close. So he's been a bit of a mentor to Strachan. So I like that. That certainly helps.
Yeah, I don't know how much you dabble in the mock draftable website with the spider charts, but
I did.
Strachan's
mock draftable.
Yeah, his spider chart is ridiculous. That and alone by itself is fun. I cannot wait to see this guy in the preseason. I think he's going to make highlight plays left and right, but he does have some projecting in development to kind of go through. I don't think he's a 53-man guy this year, and maybe even not next year. But it is really, really hard to overlook 6'5", 226 with his speed. I'm drawing a blank on who was still on the board at receiver, but when you're that late, you take a chance on traits, and this guy has just insane traits for the position. So hard to be against this pick, that at least for me, Jake.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the 7th round is exactly 4 picks like this. Like, sure, you can take the guy that everyone thought would be gone in the 3rd round, what have you, but why not go with a guy who one of your scouts has been pounding the table for, or someone's got a lot of information on? This reminds me a bit of the EJ Speed pick from a couple years ago. I think it was 5th round, and it was like, who the hell is that? But again, decent size as far as EJ Speed goes, great athleticism. I don't really see any downside in this pick. I mean, if it doesn't work out, they lost a 7th round pick, which was an extra one that they traded for to begin with. So They didn't even enter the draft with that pick.
Yeah, it's one that you have to wait 3 to 4 years to see. And again, like you said, Jake, if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. It's a 7th round pick. But if it hits, man, look out. So after that, the final pick of the draft, one of my personal favorites, grab Will Fries, offensive lineman from Penn State, nearly 50 career starts. If I remember, are projecting him at guard for right now, 6'6", 309, as you can see on the screen. This guy played left tackle, left guard, and right tackle at Penn State. He can play all over, and this feels like a guy that could potentially replace Mark Lewinsky down the line. If it hits. If not, at worst case, he's a swing tackle. He's that 8th or 9th lineman you draft on game day that in case of injury, you can plug him in anywhere. Jake, where do you come in on the Fries selection?
Yeah, I absolutely. He's the type of guy I seem to fall in love with every year as an offensive lineman. They're usually from Wisconsin. You know, they have 100 starts. They've played
Yep.
3 or 4 positions. They're kind of underdogs, and I don't know why. I get that same thing with Will Fries. Kind of feels Michael Dieterish to me. But no, I think he can come in and compete. They seem to speak pretty highly of him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's their new Joe Haig, their emergency, where do we need you this week guy.
Yep.
That's what it feels like to me. I mean, sure, it's 7th round and those guys kind of have a long shot of making it. But, but before the show started, you and I were talking, a 7th round pick with the Colts it's not that just toss away, because of the 38 draft picks that Chris Ballard had in his first 4 drafts, 31 of them were still with the Colts as of the end of the last season. So they give those guys a chance. 6th, 7th round, undrafted free agent, whatever. So Fries does have a real chance to stick around, and I think they're going to love the versatility that he brings.
Yeah, and getting him at 248, considering that he was inside the top 250 consensus. I know a lot of people that had him as a 4th, 5th round grade. To get him in the 7th round with that type of experience and versatility, it's really hard to say a 7th rounder is a home run pick. But knowing all that we know about Will Fries, this feels like a home run pick. Very safe. He's going to be on the roster for at least 4 years. And I really, truly think he could work his way into a starting role. He's better run blocker than pass blocker. But he's athletic enough where he can hold up. And when his name flashed across the screen, I was like, that is a really, really solid depth selection, no matter what. So,
yeah, among people who know what they're talking about, I haven't seen any of them poo-poo that pick at all. I think everyone is pretty on board with that one, especially that 7th round, nothing to lose there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him in preseason, see how he does in training camp and some, trench battles. I'm just curious to really see if they prefer him at right guard or left guard to start.
Because Chris Reed factors into that as well.
Yes.
I think, was Chris Reed the right guard? Yeah. I think so.
Well, he played left guard last year in Carolina, but played both guards throughout his career. So
okay, gotcha. Yeah, so man, it's not often you can really get excited about like a preseason offensive line, but that's second team offense. I'm going to look forward to that. That line is going to look nice, and then it's going to have either Eason or Ellinger behind it.
That'll be fun.
That's something to get a little pumped about.
That will certainly be fun.
Yeah, we'll analyze our second team offensive line at some point in a couple months.
For sure. That wraps up the draft for the Colts. I know that Pro Football Focus gave it a C+, and Mel Kiper gave it a C+. I tend to be a little higher than those two. I'm kind of at a B-. The only thing that really drops it, and I know that I liked the Dio pick, but knowing the holes that this roster had, and you're drafting for 2022 and beyond there, just outside of the top 50, that's the only thing I ding it for. And I know I may be alone there, but I would have liked to have seen, a trade down, get another 3rd round pick, and add another top 100 guy to the roster. So,
yeah, I think in general, I kind of fall in line there, probably low B, high C. There was a lot I liked, and I usually give them the benefit of the doubt because they know what they're doing. Like,
right.
They haven't really had a bad draft yet under Ballard, so it's fine. I'll be honest. 2nd round, when Odengbo was picked, I really had Terrace Marshall Jr. and Pat Freiermuth circled. I was like, God, that would be great if they got one of those guys.
Yeah.
Now, sure, they had plans elsewhere for those positions. Kylan Granson wound up being Freiermuth, and then they got Mike Strachan for Terrace Marshall Jr.
Right.
So they figured the things out in the end, but yeah, there was a couple picks in there that I could have done without, considering what else was on the board, but I'm open-minded with them.
And the key thing to remember here, and I know Jake and I are on the same page here, you can't really grade a draft class until 3 years down the line. But doing what we do, we spend months looking at prospects. Then you have takes on those prospects when they're picked. It's hard not to do grades.
Yeah.
So I understand the fans that are like, this is ridiculous. Give them some time. But
yeah,
that right now world that we're in, you need analysis immediately. That's what fuels that. So.
Yeah, and so obviously the biggest gripe was the left tackle position, and Stephen Offit actually, and I hope I pronounced your name right, Stephen. But he brought up something, a perfect example of the type of move the Colts tend to make. So the Bears drafted Tevin Jenkins, and I think they have someone else on board, but they let go of Charles Leno, their offensive tackle, who would be an upgrade over Sam Tevy and Julian Davenport. That could be a move. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I think that's the move right there. And Steven said you did a good job on the name, so well done, Jake. But I think that's the move, honestly. I think after the Mo Alley Cox tender, I want to say they're right around 20 million left in cap space. Leno has played in 93 career games, I believe, in Chicago. Spent 7 years there. The current O-line coach for the Colts was his position coach at Boise State. There's an obvious need, and I don't think the Colts went into this planning like, hey, Charles Leno or someone of that type is going to get released, but they've kept themselves in position to strike, when an opportunity like this comes up. And Leno isn't the best left tackle. He certainly has his warts, but that familiarity with the position coach and that experience, that's something that I think Ballard's going to be looking at. And I would not be shocked if Leno is a Colt by the end of the week.
Yeah, and again, it's something else we talked about. If they signed Leno and, that wound up being their starter over like Tevy or Davenport, I don't see that as them taking an L because Leno just became available.
Right.
If they had gone through the whole offseason with that information and just now did it, sure, that probably meant they messed up somewhere along the way. But this just happened. They couldn't have in March when they signed those two tackles, they couldn't have planned for Leno to be let go right now. So if they did sign Leno, I honestly think it would be a sign of, we're adding competition and we're doing what we can to solve this position issue.
Yeah, and I wonder if they do make the move for Leno, that it's not just a 1-year stopgap. I wonder if they could see that as hey, we can get a valuable 2 or 3 year deal for this guy who's looking for work. We have the money and the need and the familiarity. I wonder if that's hey, here's a 3-year deal. You can land here on your feet, set down roots again, and come into a situation that's familiar. I don't see it as hey, here's a 1-year veteran minimum type of move if they do it. So
right now, all their deals have been 1-year deals so far, but yeah, I could see it being a 2-3 year thing. Because he's not young by any stretch, but I don't think it's like time to send him out to pasture or anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, if you got a guy like that locked up for 2 or 3 years and, put a lot of the money up front to where if you did find a replacement in the draft next year or something, then you kind of get off with very little dead money. Right.
Yeah. And I would prefer Leno at left tackle over Quentin Nelson at left tackle and Chris Reed potentially at left guard. Although I do think Tevy could be an adequate left tackle if put into action, I would prefer Leno just head to head. So that's something to watch. I think there's a lot of dots you can connect with Leno and the Colts, and it'll be interesting to see if Ballard takes advantage of the newfound value on the market with him.
Yep. Very much looking forward to that.
Yeah. So talked about Charles Leno, wrapped up the draft. Let's look ahead these next few months. There's some roster moves the Colts could make just in terms of locking guys up. Of the 3 that I'll mention here, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some names, but Darius Leonard, Braden Smith, Nyheim Hines. How would you rank them in terms of who gets the extensions?
You said Leonard, Smith, and Hines.
Yep.
It'll probably go in that order if I had to guess. Maybe Smith first because he might be a little easier to work with in terms of
That's where
value.
that's
could
where I was
see,
going.
yeah, because Leonard, I think, is easily going to be the highest paid linebacker in the league. And between his representation in the Colts, they'll have to come to some middle ground as to what's an appropriate payday. Smith, there's probably more examples of what his payday could look like. I was kind of thinking of like Mitchell Schwartz's last contract or something.
Yeah.
Because Braden probably is a top 5 right tackle in the league, and he'll get paid like it. And Nyheim, I think they would like to get that done, but it's not the highest priority because he's very important to what they do, but they're not going to fall apart without him.
Right.
I just think he's a weapon they want to make sure they keep. But I don't think they're going to like break the bank to keep him. He's part of a uniquely deep draft class that they have to get signed.
Right. Yeah. I think that we will see a Nyheim Hines extension by the start of the regular season.
You think he'll be first?
No, I think it'll be Braden Smith, and I think that'll happen at some point in the summer before training camp. As far as Leonard, I mean, I have no concerns that he's going to leave this franchise. I can't see that. But I wonder if that's a guy that hits the open market and signs within a day of free agency starting next March. But Hines, I can see the Colts getting, a relatively cheap 3 to 4 year extension done days before the start of the regular season. If they don't do anything with Hines, they'll go into the season with Marlon Mack, Jordan Wilkins, and Hines all playing on the final year of their deal. So I would assume that because Hines is such a big part of the offense, I would assume that they would get something done quickly, at a relative price. He's not going to break the bank, I don't think. But it's hard to not see that Darren Sproles comparison and wanting to make sure that he's your ideal number 2 behind Taylor. So
yeah, because he's grown into kind of the total package. Like I don't think if he was the 16-game starter, I don't think he would be like a star rusher, but he has become a much better runner between the tackles in his few years. He's obviously an elite pass catching running back, and he's become a really good punt returner, one of the better ones in the league. So all 3 areas you hoped you would get production from him when you drafted him, he's delivering. So players like that, you reward them with new deals.
Yeah. Do you think for sure Leonard will reset the market at off-ball linebacker?
I'd have to look at who else is coming up for extensions at the same time because, they always have to compete against each other for who gets the biggest deal. But, I think they'll make Leonard the highest paid because Ryan Kelly got the highest paid center money. Kenny Moore was the highest paid nickel. When they pay these guys, they pay them what they deserve. And I can't imagine Darius wouldn't be the highest paid linebacker.
Yeah, we didn't mention Quentin Nelson because obviously he's going to play next year on the 5th-year option, but that guy's going nowhere. He will be the highest paid guard in football come the 2023 season. Leonard will have to get north of $18.5 million to surpass Bobby Wagner. And I know that one comparison would be, Levante David just hit the open market and didn't get it. I think he got $8 million a year, if I remember correctly. But David's on the older side. Leonard's still relatively young. So I think Leonard will reset the market.
Yeah, you're looking at Super Bowls and him being a key part of it in that next contract. So that's where I think big money will come into it.
For sure. And the Colts are in great position. I mean, if the reports are true that the cap is somehow going to jump to $250 million by 2023, I mean, give Darius whatever he wants.
The Colts should really want that cap to blow up. Yes, they've got a lot to put under it.
For sure. Yeah. So, Jake, as we stand here today, how do you view this roster? Do you think it's contender worthy at the moment?
I think a lot of it's just dependent on Carson Wentz. It's not markedly worse than last year. It's relatively the same. You may have a little bit of an upgrade in the pass rush department, but that's saying that Kwity Paye is going to contribute right away, which he's a rookie. He deserves to be a rookie.
Right.
I don't know. I'm going to say it's on average, taking the sum of all parts and averaging them, probably the same, but a lot of it depends on Carson Wentz.
Yeah. Do you think, and this may be an unfair question, but this roster currently, with the draft picks included, do you think it's better than the group that lost in the wild card round to the Bills on the road?
Man, that's really hard
Again,
to
it
say.
it depends on Wentz.
I can't say yes yet because that team had really started to come together at the end of the year.
Right.
I can't say yes yet. That team was really good and they should have beat Buffalo.
Yeah. You can't say no though either though. So that's a
yeah, I can't say no. I just can't say yes yet.
Yeah, again, it's going to come down to Carson Wentz. And I think Jake and I are in the same agreement where Wentz will be just fine in this offense. Will he be 2017 level? Don't know. I mean, you don't know. But I think in Wentz's current form, he's a slight upgrade on Rivers just because of the mobility. Because Rivers was pretty much just drop back passer, dead in the pocket, wouldn't really extend plays. It will be very interesting to see how this Colts group looks in training camp and preseason ahead of the start of the season. But it's a roster that I find very few flaws with. I don't know if that's the same boat that you're in, but I'm not as concerned about left tackle the more and more I watch Tevy as I was when Costanzo retired. I'm not as concerned with the pass rush anymore, considering Kwity Paye's in here. And just knowing that Banogu is going to get his shot this year. He's a traitsy guy that the Colts liked. Granted, he hasn't gotten much run, but man, I think he can at least give you some solid pass rushing snaps. It's so hard for me to find a hole on this roster right now.
Yeah, you're banking a lot on younger guys stepping up, though, which is a big thing. Some of it from guys we know have already looked good. Like, think Jonathan Taylor in his second year. That should be huge. He was already the third leading rusher as a rookie.
Right.
Julian Blackmon, healthy offseason. That should be huge because he was, for a while, a defensive rookie of the year candidate. Looks like Tyquan Lewis might keep developing. If you get anything from Ben Banogu next year, it's a plus. Kimoko Toure, they think they got that ankle thing figured out, so he should be healthier than last year. So a lot of it is dependent on Carson Wentz. A lot of it's dependent on these young guys taking another step, which there's no reason to think they shouldn't.
Right. Yeah, this feels like an old school team that's going to run the ball down your throat and is going to be very physical defensively, and they're going to take possessions away from an opposing offense. That, to me, I know everyone is into the video game styled numbers now, but you're seeing teams take advantage of that market value and really lean on the run game, ball control, and take advantage of those smaller athletes on defense. And this just feels like that's how this Colts team is built. They're going to shorten games with the run game and really just hit you in the mouth defensively. And I think that's a winning formula. We saw it down the stretch last year, and I think that there's more talent at the QB position now that can help that offense take off. So we'll see. I mean, I'm pretty darn excited to see Carson Wentz in live action under Frank Reich again. I'm interested to see the jump that Taylor takes this year in his second year in the system.
Michael Pittman too.
What's that?
Michael Pittman too.
Yeah. Going back to Taylor, I think he can win the rushing title this year. I really do.
Yeah. I don't see why not. I mean, it always seems hot takesy to say something like that, but he was the third leading rusher last year. And I think they would like to take pressure off Carson Wentz by leaning on the run game. And shoot, Taylor's been productive everywhere he's been for the last several years. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah. The only concern is, do you try and take some touches away from him to ensure that he's fresh at the end of the year going into the playoffs? But
that's true.
Man, it's hard to look at him and go, yeah, that's not one of the top backs in football. That's a guy that I think could for sure win the rushing title, just considering the offensive line in front of him and the style of play the Colts will. I want to do this is probably unfair, but I want to do some slight projecting for Kwity Paye. I know that we didn't talk about him much here, but let's say he plays 500 snaps this year. Okay. Where do you think he could come in terms of sack numbers and pressures as a rookie?
I could give him about like 6 or so. If it's 500 snaps, I could probably give him like 6 or so.
Yeah.
Because he's not the most well-polished pass rusher already either. He's still got some developing to do. But just his get off and he does have a couple moves in his bend and stuff. He should be able to get some productivity.
Yeah.
And honestly, 6 may not be enough for some people, but compared to the productivity they've gotten from some of their other defensive ends recently, that's right in line.
Yeah. I was leaning maybe 6.5, 7. So we're same ballpark, same thought. I want to project Banagher though. Let's say he gets 500 snaps. I don't even think he played 500 snaps in his career.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, he has all the tools. This has got to be the year he figures it out, because if not, he's probably off the roster next year. That may be one of those picks that doesn't stick.
Oh yeah, this will be a big year for him. It's just I don't know what the deal is. I don't think he's a smart kid. He's a good kid. He works hard and he works at his craft. So I don't really know what the issue is. But yeah, if he's given the opportunity and like actually given snaps, then that would be great. But we have to see it first. Like I don't know what the deal is, so I can't
I think baseline 5 sacks would be nice.
And that seems like saying 10 sacks for him, doesn't it?
It does. It does. But to get 5 sacks from him next year in a limited role would be very nice.
That would feel like, as glowingly as all of us have talked about Tyquan Lewis for the last year, that would be how we talk about Banagher, basically. If 5 sacks really would feel like 10 for him if he hit that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. Over under on wins. I don't remember the number that Vegas has set it at, but obviously we're going to have the 17 games this year. So you can't do the 12-4, 11-5. It's going to be weird. But let's say 11.5 wins. As we sit here today, do you feel comfortable saying over, under, push right at 11?
I was going to put him right around 10 or 11 on a 16-game schedule. Then he reminded me about the 17. So, yeah, I'd say 11 is probably about right. Like, just to be safe, because I think some of their issues, they probably know how to get around it. If they don't have a pass rush with the guys they have, like if it's just not working out pass rush wise, I think they know how to manufacture small little wrinkles into their defensive line to get some pressure, then get Darius Leonard, then get Kenny Moore. They can find extra sacks somewhere. Left tackle, we've seen them have to play without Costanzo before. Jared Valdir looked very adequate last year, so I don't see why they couldn't get that out of Tevy.
Right.
So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they're areas of need. They know how to get around it. So I'll put them at about 11 or so wins.
That's right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they surpass it, but if they were worse, that would surprise me.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to do here, and I'm with you right there at 11-6. Man, that sounds so weird to say.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, 11-6. One last thing I wanted to do, I wanted to go around the AFC South just in terms of draft classes. I put up an article about an hour ago regarding Mel Kiper Jr.'s draft grades. Colts had the lowest draft grade from PFF and ESPN. The Jaguars obviously got, Trevor Lawrence, who's projected to be face of their franchise. The Texans may have just drafted the successor to Deshaun Watson. And the Tennessee Titans took Caleb Farley with their first pick. How do you think the rest of the AFC South shakes out? Do you think the Titans took that next step forward as the top team in the division? Did the Jaguars close the gap at all? And what in the world is up in Houston?
Yeah, so Houston, obviously, they didn't have a pick until the third round. So that I didn't even know what to project for them initially. But for it to be a quarterback, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Because if Deshaun Watson plays this year, then they basically didn't have a pick until the fourth round. But no, Jacksonville, just looking at it, I didn't know if they would actually go ahead and pull the trigger on Travis Etienne. I know a lot of people mocked it. They mocked that connection, but I didn't know that they would actually do it because they didn't need it. And I mean, sure, it makes them better, but like James Robinson is really good. So,
And also, it's really weird that Urban Meyer comes out and says, yeah, Travis is going to be our third down back. We're going to roll with Robinson and Hyde as the 1-2. And Travis Etienne's going to be like a third down type running back. How do you take that type of back at 25?
Right, exactly. But I can't imagine a planet in the solar system where Carlos Hyde is above Travis Etienne. So
yeah, I put on Twitter as soon as I read that, I was like, Urban Meyer's not telling the truth here, and we as reporters need to call him on it. Like, he's lying because he doesn't want to stir the pot with, the leading rusher from last season and a veteran back that he's known most of his life.
If they took a running back in the first round that they didn't intend to really be their leading toucher, at least that would feel like when the Seahawks, I forget who it was, the Seahawks took that running back a few years ago in the first round that flamed out immediately. He couldn't get playing time, and who was it?
Oh, it's from San Diego State.
Yeah, I can't even remember his name anymore.
No,
he was a first round running back recently. So, but yeah, you can't do that. You just. I did like some of their picks though, like Tyson Campbell at the top of the second. I did like that. That felt very Urban Meyer-y to me. Walker Little after that. Looking at Tennessee, they had some enormous holes to fill, like season-changing holes to deal with, like receiver, tight end, and corner. It was bad. Caleb Farley made a lot of sense to me, and they actually did it. So I like that for them if he's healthy. They needed a right tackle. I had projected Tevin Jenkins to them before in the first round. They got Dylan Radunes in the second. That's not so bad. They didn't take a receiver until 4, and it was Dez Fitzpatrick, so that's not even the guy I would have taken.
Yeah.
Their first couple picks, I like it, but in general, I didn't love it. I don't think it's enough to keep the Colts away from taking the South.
I am a little concerned, and I do wonder if the Titans make a move here in the next few days on Rashad Weaver out of Pitt. I don't know if you saw the news, but he was just charged with assault.
Was it Weaver?
A report. What's that?
I thought it was one of their draft picks. I didn't know if it was Weaver, but yeah.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I think he was he a third rounder?
Weaver, yeah, he was later. I think it was day 3. Let's see. Yeah, Weaver was 4th round.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious if they make a move. He had some comments in that story from the police report that were very, very concerning regarding violence against women. The Titans had to have known something like that was coming, and if not, shame on them. Right. But the ball is now in their court. They need to make a decision. Are we going to stand and support this guy that we just drafted, or do we just cut ties immediately? It would not shock me if they cut ties, but I mean, we've seen this in the NFL. Teams will value talent over character every day of the week. So, but that's the one thing I wanted to check in on with the AFC South. I mean, the Jaguars got Trevor Lawrence. They added some weapons around him. They got him some protection. So it'll be interesting. I don't think they've closed the gap whatsoever. The Texans, I like Davis Mills a lot, but man, if you go from Deshaun Watson to Davis Mills, like that's a significant downgrade. And then the Titans, I know that we talked about fairly. I like the player. I did not like him as a first rounder with those medicals. And I don't even know if he's going to be on the field much in 2021. So it'll be curious to see. But I would still put the Colts in the driver's seat for the 2021 season. So
I think after the draft, I'd be more comfortable doing that because I was of the thinking that it was the Titans it was the Titans' crown to lose, and then free agency happened, and they lost a lot.
Yeah.
And their draft was just all right. Yeah, it's definitely not Houston and Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I think, will be competitive every week, or most weeks, but I don't know that they're division. I don't think they're division threateners quite yet.
Yeah. What we have for today, I'm sure we're going to do a couple more here, maybe throughout the week, and kind of get on a set schedule here through the rest of the off season. But we're going to bring you a ton of analysis on SportsIllustrated.com at Horseshoe Huddle, breaking down draft picks, looking at the roster moving forward, maybe even some predictions from the staff. But a lot of work went into draft season for both of us. Now we know who's on the roster, who the picks were. We can really just jump in head first, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's a lot more studying to do now. Now that we know who's there, I want to watch even more of each guy. So there's still work to do.
Yeah. Well, hey, for Jake, I'm Josh here on Horseshoe Huddle. Tune in next time. We'll have lots to discuss about the Colts moving forward for the 2021 season.